I want you to think about a fire truck pulling up, facing a serious situation. They hook up to the hydrant and dribbles of water come out. This could be a reality if we don't start conserving more water. Calgarians, I need you to do more. And I know that's frustrating for you to hear, but there's still a real threat that we could run out of water.
But here we are at Inglewood Golf Course on Thursday afternoon, watering the green, because of course we can't have the fucking parasites not have a nice green lawn to play golf on.
Normally, I don't talk about local Canadian news. It just doesn't come up. And also, I'm 95% sure most of you are American, so it's not very relevant. But I'm going to be sharing Canadian gossip with you today, specifically about civic water systems. I don't know if this sounds terribly boring, but I'm fired up and I want to talk about it because I just learned a bunch of stuff with my eye holes. Basically, I live outside of Calgary. Calgary is one of the largest cities in Alberta. I think it might be the largest. And it is one of the fourth largest metropolitan areas in all of Canada. So it's kind of a big deal. There's about 1.4 million people that live there. Right now, there is a water shortage. And I guess the whole reason this happened is because the city water system, there was a break of some kind in not the main feeder. I didn't know this, but apparently there are like reservoir situations with the water where they collect the water from the Bow River and the Elbow River, the Glenbow Reservoir, and they scoop all that water into the pipes, and they have some like little tanks and stuff, and they keep the water there for the people. One of the main feeders, because there's only two, that shocked me. Apparently, all the water for Calgary, the entire city, plus parts of Airdrie and Chestermere, which are like brother cousins. They're like just outside of the city, also get their water from there. So that's wild. Okay, there's like 2 plants total that do all the water for everybody. I had no idea. That's insane. But yeah, there's a break of some kind, and initially they were like, well, shit, we're gonna fix that as fast as possible. Please don't use any water. For a while, people did really good, because the goal was to reduce the water by about 25%, which sounds like a lot, but people were doing a pretty good job. They weren't taking showers, they weren't washing their cars, they decided not to do their lawns and such. And I guess like the threshold of safety is the difference between like 420 liters of water total per day and 480 liters of water per day. So that doesn't sound too bad. But as we've crept up into week 3, the water usage has slowly begun to like increase to that dangerous threshold, not necessarily related to the more water usage. As they were fixing it, they sent a robot. I didn't know you could do this. They sent a robot into the water system to look for other breaks, and they were like, yeah, so we found out that there's actually like 5 different places that the water system is also broken, and it's getting very complicated over here. We have to have workers at 5 different sites all working on the water system at the same time to try to fix it. So if you guys could just fucking not. Thanks. And that's kind of where we're at right now. First of all, I didn't even know how the water system worked, but I guess the issue isn't that using water will break the pipes, which is what I imagined in my brain. Alberta in general is very hilly. There's a lot of elevation. We've got like the Rocky Mountains are just short of where I live. So we got a lot of different hills and valleys and such and mountainy areas happening. And I guess that actually adds additional pressure on the water system because people in lower areas who are pulling water, it's easier to get water to the areas that are in those sort of like hilly bowl spots. But the people that are on top of the hills, that takes water pressure if you want the water to go up the pipe to the people. So if we don't keep enough water in the entire system overall, a significant portion of people will not be getting any water if we run out. There's like a safe amount of water that you keep in the entire system. It just sort of like flows around. Some of it's in the reservoir, some of it's currently in the pipes squibbling around. Sometimes people use some of that water, and that reduces the overall amount of water that we have. And while they're fixing the pipes, they're relying on one of the 2 feeders, which is actually, I think, the bigger one, but I'm not sure by how much. So the city's like, please, if you keep using more water than we actually have, there will be less pressure in the pipes, and then one day no one will have any water. And at first, it was going well. Okay, people were doing good, but then I saw this TikTok, and it was a video of the city of Calgary people being like, hey, you guys are using water again. You need to fucking know in your soul that you need to be saving water. It's very important, and it's your fault. And initially, I was a little bit like, yeah, this tracks for Alberta. We didn't exactly respond the best to COVID, and I think for the same reasons. Because what happened was like the first week or two, everyone was on board. They were all like, yeah, I can stay home. I'll wash my hands. I'll wear a mask. And then at some point during week 3 or 4, I think also, people started being like, you know what? Fuck it. No one else needs to do this shit, and I don't want to do this shit, and also my freedoms and such. Which, if you've never been to Alberta, it's kind of like what I imagine Texas is like, but Canadian style. So it didn't take long for people to be like, this is all fake, and the government's controlling us, and it's all bad and shit, and I also just don't want to wear a mask because it makes my breathing hurt. and that was where we were at. I don't know if it's an Alberta thing. I don't know if it's a human thing, but there's just something about having to do collective action for the greater good for long stretches of time that's hard. You know, like a one-day event where you get together and you raise donations or you test a bunch of bone marrow donors for like a cancer kid. That we can do. A single day event. When we had the floods a couple years ago, people got together and they were like, yeah, I can sandbag the river with you. But when you're stretching on into almost a month, because apparently now that there have been 5 other breaks that they've found, they're like, yeah, so actually we're looking at 5 to 7 weeks before any of you can shower for more than 90 seconds. People stop being thrilled with the idea of being a good human, because it kind of sucks for a long amount of time. So yeah, at first I was like, this tracks. Obviously people are just kind of becoming shitty again, because I don't know, it's just a thing we do. We get bored of being good after a while. But then I thought about it and I was like, that doesn't seem very fair. There's a lot of things that use water, and it can't all just be the households, can it? So I looked this up. Apparently, of all the water that gets used in the city, 65% of it is households, people flushing their toilets and taking showers and watering the lawn and cleaning their cars and doing the dishes. That's actually, it's more than half, but it's not a lot, especially if you need to reduce just 25% overall. And I was like, what is the other percentage of that? Apparently, okay, after the 65%, let me do some quick math here. The other, 35%? Please don't make fun of me if this is wrong. The other 35% of water is stuff for irrigation, industrial use, commercial buildings. There were a lot of car washes and stuff where people were like, hey, please stop operating for a little bit. I know you're a business and everything, but you use a lot of water and it's just to clean cars, and we kind of need that right now. So quite a few businesses have been sort of good about that, but there are some things that I found curious while I was researching. So I guess restaurants are still allowed to operate, but because, health and safety food stuff, they just have to reduce the amount of water they're using, which may be fine. But if we're trying to save water and not do unnecessary water things, it seems going to a restaurant might be unnecessary. During COVID, it sucked that we couldn't go to the restaurant, but you can cook at home. That's a thing you could do. Alternatively, I would be curious if restaurants could figure out some way to do a communal situation with the cooking to save water. But it seems like there are at least a few manufacturing facilities in Calgary that use a significant amount of water, and they haven't necessarily been asked to reduce their usage because they make the city money. And that seems to be a theme. Because while I was looking for stuff, oh my god, okay, apparently we're still having the Stampede. And if you don't know what the Stampede is, it is an absolutely huge tourist attraction in Calgary every summer. It is supposed to be like a big rodeo, right? There's lots of animals and barrel racing and horse jumping and such. And people come from all over, okay? Thousands of tourists come to the city of Calgary every summer to go to the Stampede, and they eat the various snacks and such. Sometimes it's neat things like insects and ice cream. Sometimes it's deep fried, also ice cream. We have layers. Apparently, they're just still gonna do that, and the idea is we'll just keep the water usage a little bit lower to help out. But the thing is, it's a rodeo, so there's 1,000 animals that are gonna be at the Stampede, and they're like, yeah, we'll just clean less and stuff. But the animals drink water every day. No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe animals don't need to drink water, but I feel like I drink water every day, and I'm not the size of a cow. So I feel like at a certain amount of water that we're now gonna have to be bringing in, and they're like, yeah, we'll just, I don't know, we'll import potable water or or something from somewhere else. It'll be fine. And I'm a little bit suspicious because I'm like, you do have to clean a little bit at the stampede grounds because they're filthy. People are gross at the stampedes. They do gross, filthy things and they spread that filth everywhere. That's partly why people that actually live here sometimes don't go to the stampede like ever, because it's kind of gross and people are gross there. So yeah, I was a little bit suspicious of that because I was like, I feel like the stampede might not be necessary. It's a huge helpful thing for the economy. You know, every year we get thousands of tourists, they all come in. But if I think about it in my brain, we have at least a couple more weeks until people can start using water again in the city. But we probably reduce the amount of water that's in the whole system overall because we've been relying on a single thing to do all the work for a while. That just makes sense to me. And then we're asking thousands of people from other places to come into the city of Calgary to then use more water. And I think that might be a poor choice on our part. You know, even the economy, okay, it's important. We all like money. We all have businesses and such, or work for businesses. But, like, water is important too, you know? So that was a thing I found intriguing. And apparently the city of Calgary is like, yep, we're just gonna go on with all these other minor fests. Apparently there's like a snow toboggan festival in the summer. I was a little bit confused about that, but I didn't have time to look into it because I was so frustrated I wanted to come tell you about it. And yeah, like in general, I understand why you would want to keep those activities going, but also like water shortage, was that not important? And we were just shaming all the citizens of Calgary about it. And again, we're just like, yep, all the manufacturing places, they can continue. But how dare you take a more than 90-second shower, you terrible, evil human being. Overall, I feel like maybe it'll be fine. Maybe they'll get the repairs done and people will be fine. But it's gotten me thinking about some things because, like I said, I've never thought about where the water comes from. We've always just sort of had it about. We're very blessed in Canada to have a lot of natural resources that are just sort of available to us. And please don't hate me. Climate change. So many people in Alberta don't believe climate change is real. I don't think you're ever going to convince them. But I would say since 2001, we've had at least 4 or 5 droughts, which is not usual. And apparently they seem to be getting like worse every year that they happen. Some people are like, yeah, so it hasn't actually been like this droughty since we settled the province in like 100 years ago. So that's intriguing to me. But one of the things it's got me thinking about is like maybe this will be sort of a wake-up call for people about water conservation in general. Because I work at a hardware store and I've had people from the city calling to see if we have rain barrels. And rain barrels were sort of like a weird hippie thing for a while. Like I know some people with rain barrels and it's almost always farm people or your hippie mom who wants to grow pea shoots in her backyard and have a chicken. Maybe this will sort of get people thinking more about local action and things that they could be doing. Or maybe paying a little bit more attention to city infrastructure because it seems like the water system is actually very important. We just didn't think about it before. And if it is breaking to this degree after 49 years, maybe that's like a sign we should be putting money towards city infrastructure to like fix that, you know, instead of arguing about what the trans are doing in Alberta currently. I feel like one of these things has a more immediate impact on their quality of life in your future. And maybe this will be the moment where people are like, oh, actually, I should pay attention to municipal affairs and tell my representatives that like, hey, you should be fixing this for like the future. And I don't know, maybe we need some more reservoirs than we currently thought, especially because it really, really looks like as soon as this water crisis is done, we will have another drought. Very exciting. Seems like maybe we were not as prepared as we thought we were to deal with water shortages. And if these droughts become a continuous thing, maybe water conservation should be a thing that Calgary thinks about a little bit more. Because if people can't handle this 3 to 5 weeks of fire bans and we're not exactly sure how to handle it and the businesses are perhaps not the most optimized for water conservation, this is the time to reassess how those systems work and how we operate and what sorts of things we do and don't do on a regular basis. And then we will be able to say, yeah, actually, maybe, just in case this happens again, we should add more to the water system so that maybe our threshold for how many liters of water we need if one of the feeders breaks is a little bit higher because it's getting dicey out here. And then also, one of the things that I think is sort of like adjacent to this idea, but isn't this idea, is how do First Nations people handle not having water? And that might sound insensitive to you, but okay, as long as I've been growing up, anytime First Nations issues come up about the reserves over there somewhere, they'll mention that like a lot of reserves in the more rural areas don't have access to clean water. And people go, oh, that's so sad and terrible. The government should do something about that. But then they don't do anything about that. And then we just sort of go about our day because there are people that sort of quietly to themselves are like, I just fucking think they should move into the city. We don't need to have reserves anyways. So yeah, now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, God damn, there's a bunch of people on reserves who don't, this isn't like a 5 to 7 week issue for them. This is like the entire time they live there. And I don't know how they do it, you know, because people are having a really hard time just like not showering very long or not getting to use their dishwasher. And there are people in this country where that's like not an option for them. Part of me kind of hopes that like maybe people will clue in and they'll be like, yeah, actually maybe that's a little more than sad and maybe that's unacceptable because it's personally unacceptable for me to not have water. And then maybe we could talk to people and be like, hey, so like those of you who are suffering currently, how do you cope with that? Is there like stuff you do that we don't know about that could be educational for everybody? You know, maybe we could all be on the same page for once. That'd be cool. I don't know. In general, it would be neat. Maybe we could incentivize the local businesses to actually be more thoughtful with their water usage overall. California, it's my understanding, they have the droughtiest of droughts that continue to drought. And they've had to make a lot of changes. And I feel like they might be good people to talk to. You know, maybe Canada could hit up California and be like, hey, so like, what do you guys do to make sure you have enough water on hand? Because we might want to change some things about how we're operating, at least in Alberta, because people need water. We need to drink the water. We need to shower occasionally. There's a lot of things that I think we take for granted. Overall, it's a little bit frustrating because it seems like a lot of the burden has been placed on the citizens of Calgary, the households in Calgary, which is a lot of people. It's about 1,000,004 people. But it's frustrating because there are clearly other actors within the city who contribute to the water usage overall. I've also noticed there's a frequent trend where the Stampede specifically gets a lot of exceptions just because they're a moneymaker. Okay, there have been several big issues, and the city of Calgary will still be like, yeah, the Stampede is fine, but fuck the rest of you. You're all bad citizens. But Stampede, they're special. Okay, we coddle them. They're little babies. They deserve something different and special than everyone else because they bring in money. And that doesn't seem very sustainable in the long run. And then I'm also hoping that maybe this will spur more interest in local government and how the money is spent on the city things. Because all the time, people only really pay attention if they're already mad about something and it's bad. But like maybe moving forward, we could prioritize stuff like water conservation because it seems like it's going to be important if we continue having the droughts and such. And yeah, overall, I don't know, maybe this could be a good opportunity for people to go, oh yeah, maybe water not being available to people all over Canada is bad, and maybe we should, I don't know, do some things to improve our water treatment systems and how much water we store at any given time and how the individual people handle water stuff. Because honestly, I think maybe one time in school we talked about the water system, but it was boring and confusing and I didn't fully understand the purpose of this information. But currently in the middle of it, while I'm looking at the news and such, I'm like, oh yeah, this would have been helpful information to retain. Because anytime there's some kind of an emergency situation, a crisis, people get very confused about what's happening and what they should be doing. And if the city isn't very clear on like what that looks like and what that means, not going to be very effective. People get very confused, and I think that's just part of being human in the world and doing stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit of Canadian drama for you, and maybe you learned something educational today about how Alberta at least works in Calgary and water, because I don't know, that was kind of neat. And also we have robots that can do stuff. I thought that was very exciting. So yeah, that was my whole thoughts on that. I don't know if you enjoyed. Would you like to hear more Canadian things? Because like I think about stuff sometimes, you know, but I'm not really sure how interesting it would be to people because I never see anyone talk about Canada on YouTube. It's very rare. Occasionally you'll watch a YouTuber and they'll mention they're Canadian and I'll be like, Curtis is one of us. But other than that, it doesn't really happen. Okay, yeah, so that was everything and I hope you enjoyed.